remote northern region, where towering mountains pierce the heavens and the wind whispers ancient secrets, lies the cursed forest. This forest, feared by all who lived nearby, was a place of dark legend. To the untrained eye, it seemed like a regular stretch of lush, green wilderness, but its depths concealed a story of mystery, magic, and a haunting past. The tale of the cursed forest dates back centuries. It is said that a powerful deity, a wolf-like creature as black as the night itself, once chose this forest as its eternal home. The deity protected the land with silent, unyielding fury. For generations, the nearby villagers offered tributes to keep the creature at bay, believing that peace with the guardian was better than risking its wrath. Yurik, a young man orphaned at a young age, was raised by his grandmother, who filled his childhood with tales of the forest. She spoke of the immense danger that awaited those who dared venture beyond the edge of the woods, warning him that once someone entered the forest's heart, they never returned. Yet Yurik was different from the others in the village. The stories, rather than instilling fear, sparked curiosity and a longing to explore. He had always felt a pull toward the forest, an inexplicable connection that he couldn't ignore. One chilly morning, as the sun barely rose over the horizon, Yurik stood at the edge of the cursed forest. His heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. He knew what lay ahead was dangerous, but his desire for answers was stronger. Over the years, he had begun to suspect that the tales his grandmother told him hid something personal, something connected to his family. His dreams were filled with the forest, with shadowy figures calling his name, and each time he awoke with a deeper urge to uncover the truth. As Yurik crossed into the forest, the air changed around him. The bird songs faded, and the vibrant green of the trees turned darker. A thick mist began to swirl at his feet, and a deep silence settled over everything. Despite the ominous atmosphere, he pressed on, his steps careful but determined. Yurik walked deeper into the forest, feeling an almost tangible presence around him. The trees seemed to shift and move, and though he saw no living creatures, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. His thoughts raced back to the village stories, to the warnings of the black wolf deity. Villagers claimed that the wolf was not just a guardian, but a judge, punishing those who entered the forest without respect. It was said that the deity could read hearts, knowing whether one came with pure intentions or selfish greed. Yurik's pulse quickened as he wondered what the wolf would make of him. The deeper he went, the more the forest seemed alive. Twisted roots tangled across the ground like fingers, and the mist thickened. Strange shapes flitted at the edges of his vision, shadows darting between the trees, whispering his name. He couldn't tell if it was his imagination, or if the forest itself was speaking to him. Every step felt like it brought him closer to something he could not yet understand. After what felt like hours of walking, Yurik found himself standing before a large, moonlit clearing. In the center was a shimmering pool of water, its surface perfectly still despite the gentle breeze. The mist parted around the pool, revealing a massive black wolf standing at its edge. The wolf's eyes glowed in the moonlight, reflecting both wisdom and an ancient, untold power. It was the creature of legend, the deity that had watched over the forest for centuries. Yurik stood, frozen. The wolf was as majestic as it was terrifying, its presence radiating power. But, to his surprise, it didn't move to attack. It simply watched him, waiting. Yurik could feel the weight of its gaze, as if it were assessing his very soul. He took a step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Why have you come?" A deep, resonant voice echoed in Yurik's mind. It wasn't spoken aloud, but came from within, as though the forest itself was speaking through the creature. Yurik gathered his courage and answered, "I seek the truth. I seek to understand why this forest calls to me, why I feel I'm connected to it." The wolf tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "You are braver than most," the voice said. "Few come seeking truth. Many come for selfish reasons, for wealth, power, or to conquer the unknown. You, however, are different." The forest around them seemed to quiet further, as if even the wind held its breath. Yurik felt a strange warmth spread through him, as though something inside the forest recognized him. He began to realize that perhaps the pull he felt toward this place wasn't new. Perhaps it had been part of his life long before he was born. The wolf's voice filled the air again. "Your ancestors were once the keepers of this land. They walked beside me, protecting the balance between the natural world and the human. But as time passed, their descendants grew greedy and fearful. They forgot their duty. You are the first in generations to return, to seek the forest's truth." Yurik felt the weight of those words. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of it all. His family had once been connected to this place, but why had no one ever told him? The dreams, the stories, the strange connection. It was all starting to make sense. The wolf stepped closer to him, its massive form towering over Yurik. Despite its size, there was no threat in its movements, only understanding. "You have the potential to restore what was lost," it said. "But the path is not easy. The forest will test you. It will demand sacrifice, loyalty, and respect." Yurik felt a surge of determination. He had come seeking answers, and now that he had them, he knew his journey was far from over. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "I will do what it takes to honor the bond my family had with this forest." The wolf's eyes seemed to soften, and for a moment, Yurik thought he saw something almost human in its expression. "Then the forest will guide you," the wolf said. "But be warned, once you begin this path, there is no turning back." Yurik nodded, accepting the responsibility. He knew that from this moment forward, his life would be tied to the forest, just as his ancestors had been. As the mist began to swirl around him once more, the wolf turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Yurik alone in the moonlit clearing. The air felt different now, lighter, as if the forest had accepted him as one of its own. Yurik returned to the village the next day, but he was not the same man who had left. The villagers noticed a change in him, though none could quite put their finger on what it was. He no longer spoke of leaving or finding answers elsewhere. Instead, he spent his days walking the edges of the forest, observing, listening, learning. Over time, the village, once filled with fear of the cursed forest, began to feel at peace with it. They no longer whispered of the wolf in terror, but spoke of the forest with quiet reverence. And though the villagers still avoided venturing too deep, they knew that Yurik was different. He had become something of a guardian himself, a bridge between the human world and the ancient forces that dwelled within the woods. The forest was no longer just a place of dark mystery. It had become Yurik's home, and in time, the villagers understood that the cursed forest was not a place to be feared, but respected. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to discover more enchanting tales and ancient traditions from the comfort of your home.